That bit with Pete Graves at the end always gets me every single time. It's a cracking.
He did ask for it.
He did.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're back. Fully loaded transfer show. Stroke review because we're absolutely class. Maybe didn't show we're class last night, but we're absolutely class in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup first leg. Boys, how are we doing? How are things?
Not too bad.
Oh, good. Yep.
You literally said that in tandem as well.
Hey, we're matching. We're twins, right?
It's not rehearsed. What I'm doing is now I'm going to speak now, and then what happens is by that time Darson starts speaking to feel his feedback caught up sort of thing.
That doesn't start till 9 o'clock. You're not a while to go.
Yeah. Just kicks in at a certain time. But
all good, Pete. Yeah, look, sure. After last night, we were knocking on the door. We're going to get into it a small bit, not a full review show, but just a few flashbacks. But we're knocking on the door for so long, and then it happened. We got the breakthrough that we deserved. But all good. Looking forward to what lies ahead. Big, massive week ahead.
It is, and it just feels so much closer to that potential of us going to Wembley for a cup final. Look, Richie, what are your thoughts going into next week's second leg? Are you hopeful? Do you think it's done? Do you think there's still work to do? What are your thoughts?
It's not done until the final whistle next Tuesday night, is it? But there was a couple. They gave us a couple of little scares last night, but obviously Nick Pope stood up to everything, and that was flung at him again last night. But to be fair, we should have killed the game off completely last night. There was, we discussed in our chat last night. Our passing was woeful last night in parts, and decision making was appalling as well. It's clear to say, when you've got that quality of pitch like Isak, he's a striker, but he obviously knows he's not going to score from where he is. He puts a lovely ball, the one really good ball that goes into the box, and it's finished. But it's this. I felt a little bit sorry for Callum Wilson. He didn't really have any. If any of those balls had felt to Callum Wilson last night, you think he would have scored them. But none of them felt to Callum Wilson. It was up to everybody but Callum Wilson while he was on. But I was pleased for Joe Litton. He had that one ruled out, and then obviously he did a Ronnie Rosenthal not long before he got the winner. But it wasn't. Yeah, I'm happy. And any positive result to bring back St James's was good. So I think we just kick on next week and kill them off.
Yeah, I'm gonna butt in here, Pete, for a second, stick with what Richie was saying about it not being over till the final whistle on next Tuesday night. But where are you going to be for next Tuesday night? Because we're going to be one place, and that's here. Well, maybe downstairs in front of a TV, but this is where we'll be. You asked, and we are going to go deliver. We're going to go back to our roots, and we're going to bring you this Loaded Match Day Live. So we're going to kick off on Tuesday evening. Not sure the exact time yet, but it's not only is it going to be Loaded Match Day Live, it's also our transfer deadline day all in one go. So we'll be wearing the full kit and suits all together, and we'll be watching the game. You'll see our live reactions back again. Where you used to be very poor reactions or shock and awe when we actually scored. But yeah, we're coming for goals on next Tuesday night, and also we're coming for signings as well. So and departures. Anything could happen next Tuesday night. So I think this is the place to be. I know if you're not at the game, and if you're at the game,
well, I was about to say there was a queue of over 30,000 who didn't get tickets. So you're not tuned to us. We'll happily keep you entertained. That 30,000 that aren't actually able to get to the ground, we'll happily keep you entertained.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we are back with something a little bit different. Like I said, going back to our roots. We'll be on early doors. Confirm the time nearer the time. But look, come and join us. Come and join us next Tuesday as we prepare for the game. And look, it was a game that we needed to win, Daz. Is that all you care about? The fact that we won, or did as Richie said, the passing and the lack of quality at times worry you in any way in the build up to the second leg?
No, we kept knocking at the door. Yeah, when Joe Linton had that miss, when you thought, okay, is it going to be one of those days? And everyone was getting a bit nervous. I still kept the faith that we're in that second half we're going to score. But yeah, it you can you worry about the quality that sometimes with Willock, the long staff in that game, and but we kept at it, and we eventually got what we deserved. Like, when Maxi and here I'll show the pictures came on, and when Isak came on as well, it did turn the game, and Southampton were tiring at that stage, and of course the whole the other little incident that was great fun. Oh, where is the picture gone? I'll have to I have it somewhere. I had a picture ready for that, but I'll find that. I'm talking about the little Murphy incident, a little waving goodbye. But yeah, no, we did deserve it. Even if we got a draw, I think I still would have been confident that we'll take it at home. But now with the 1-0, it should be it should be something we can get over the line. And with the war flags as well, the scarves are back, so get your scarves ready for Tuesday night, lads, as well as the suit and the full kit. We need to have a scarf, so it's full outfits next Tuesday night.
Full kit and caboodle, eh?
Yeah, I forgot we did that last year, actually. Yeah.
I was going to say, just following on from that, what you were saying there, Daz, about last night, there was Eddie Howe mentioned something really good, interesting in one of the interviews after the game, that because the matches have been quite close together, they haven't been able to focus on training in between the games, so that's been more like recovery game. And he mentioned that was possibly a reason why there's been a lot of the passing hasn't been fantastic, because they haven't been able to work on it in training. So hopefully what you'll see is for the home leg next week, they've got a full week just to train, focus on the return leg. Hopefully incorporate some new signings this week as well that may be eligible for Tuesday night as well. So, well, I think if that'll bode well if what Eddie was saying, that it's because they've had no training, if we see a completely different positive performance next week.
Could well be, and wouldn't mind a couple of additions coming into that squad for Southampton, getting a few minutes ready for the West Ham game. There's a few in the chat. I think Lisa put it in there. No sound on the intro. I definitely heard it.
I heard it.
Yeah. But Lisa could be right, because I watched the last show we were on as well, and it was the same thing. The sound, we can hear it going live, and it plays full blast for us. But that is weird. Maybe I'll because I don't think it happened for away days. Because I did watch that back as well, and the intro is there. So maybe I'll have to. But that's a new copy of the intro. So weird. Maybe it's some kind of StreamYard issue, I think, Lisa. But thanks for pointing it out. We will look into it.
Definitely.
I will.
Yeah, Daz is on the case. Good, Dad. And look, as always, we've got 220 plus watching already. Welcome to all watching Full Loaded Transfer Show. You've got like some Michael Palmer. Daniel Much is back for another live. Great to have you in there. Cole T, great to have you there. David Cook, Andrew DB, Truls in the house, Paul C, Kamal, I could keep going, Paul Gallett, Lewis Murr, so many regulars, so many familiar faces and names in there. Sean McEwen, welcome to the channel. Great to have you on there. If anyone's wondering where Jordan is, Jordan will be there. It will be here very, very soon. He planned to jump on a little bit later. He'll be here hopefully in the next 10 minutes or so. He had some work to do, so maybe we'll ask him about that. What work?
Breaking news, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we will definitely ask the question, that's for sure. But look, he'll be on very, very soon. So get your questions in for Jordan now. Quite rightly, as Lisa's put in the chat, get your questions in for Jordan. There's a few already. Tom Dixon, as Daz has already said, straight in there with his first question for Jordan. So get him in there right now. Look, there was something that came out of the game. We'll talk about individuals that came out of the game last night, and one of them in particular was Callum Wilson. And Jonathan's put a comment on and put, I love Callum Wilson, but it really looks like he needs a break, particularly when I think he's assuming saying Isaac, a little typo there, has looked so sharp in his short opportunities. I gave my opinion on one of the review shows with regards to Callum Wilson as to why I don't think he's ultimately to blame for what's happening at the moment, his lack of goal scoring. But what did you make of his performances? Certainly last night. Richie, I'll start with you. Is it a cause for concern from your perspective? Does he need to be removed from the team?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because he's always been that focal point for Newcastle for since he joined the club. Well, obviously, when he started when he's been fit. But I think this is the first time he's really had someone who's threatened to take his place off him. So that might be something that's weighing on his mind a little bit, and perhaps he's I don't know if he might be carrying a nick. I don't know. It's very, very rare we get told these sort of things. You might hear at the end of the season that someone played for so many months with, they played at 80% or something, had a niggling injury all season. I don't know. But he hasn't looked himself since he's returned from the World Cup. He's always been renowned for making a run on the defender and getting across them to the front post. We've talked it numerous times, lads, about it. When we've said about get that ball in the box for Callum Wilson, he'll get either side of the defender, and especially when he does it at the front post and stuff like that. But we're not even seeing those runs, and he's not doing what Isak was doing last night, where Isak we saw, and it made a lot of big difference when it came in, because obviously the goal came that way. He was running the channels really well last night, Isak, but the one thing I felt a bit sorry for Wilson, there wasn't any quality put into the box, in and around in the box when he was actually there last night. But at the same time, he wasn't trying to create stuff as well. He wasn't, as I said, wasn't running the channel. He wasn't really holding the ball if it got put up, like we know he can do. He just didn't see him. He hasn't seen himself since he come back. And I don't know whether it's the fact he's now got someone who's the club record signing. He's an international. He's seen as the future of the club going forward. Over his shoulder now. Perhaps he's not relaxed. I don't know. There's a few different things you could possibly throw out there, but we'd have to either have him come out and say it, or Eddie to come out and say why he did it. But perhaps he might need to come out the team just to have a bit of a breather, have a bit of a refresh and a recharge. Eddie put his arm around his, he knows exactly how to get things out of Callum Wilson. He's known him for years, and just get him back to how he was, because we know that all cylinders firing Callum Wilson is fantastic for Newcastle. So hopefully it's just a little phase he's going through. We can get him back to goal, because obviously, we haven't brought in an extra forwards for leaving Chris Wood yet. So, we might be reliant on him getting, finding those goals again, which I'm sure that us lads know he's bound to do it, because he's never not gone through it. Every striker does tend to go through a barren spell at some point. If sometimes you see they're creating chances, and you don't mind that if they miss them, because they're still going to try and get more chances, and he's not even getting the chances. He's not even really getting, the few shots he's had on target have been tamed. The one against Palace, there's a header straight at the keeper. The same against Fulham. There wasn't anything where he's really tested the goalie as well. So it's been more half chances. So I just think, give him take the pressure, take him out for the game next week. We've got a lead next week. Go on and build from it. It's not as though he's having to go out and, the pressure of having to get a win, starting 0-0. We've got a lead there. It could take the pressure of, if he did take the pressure of knowing we're already ahead, or take what the attack, bring it back in, start Maxi as well, because they both look fantastic. And they've obviously, what Maxi was saying in the interview, they've been working on it in training between the two of them. He likes playing with Isak, and let's not beat around the bush here. Maxi's being quite sensible there, because he's thinking if he can get a working relationship with Isak, it's going to be good for his stay at Newcastle as well, because if they've got a good chemistry between them, like Fraser and Wilson used to have when they were born with him when they first came to Newcastle, that prolongs his career and takes him forward with on this journey with the club as well, rather than having to look over the shoulder, is who's going to be his replacement, like Wilson might be thinking with Isak?
Yeah, really, yeah, good point with regards to ASM. 100%, it's the smart move. But I think in addition to that, there's probably another reason on top of that as well. Daz, I'm coming to you. I'm going to ask you a different type of question, but I want to get your thoughts on Wilson. I know you've already kind of said it in one of the review shows.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a lack of motivation from Callum Wilson now, having already been picked, participated in the World Cup for England? You know, was that his sole motivation? Do you think his motivation's dipped since he's come back from Qatar?
No, it's not a motivation thing with Callum Wilson. No, he just from, I don't know him. A lot of us won't know him, but you kind of do get a sense of him as well. No, he'll be out to be the best he can be whenever he can. He's that kind of guy. I don't believe that he's just kind of given up and happy to take a paycheck now or not give 100%. He's given 100%. I did take on board what you were saying, Pete, in the review show, and you made some good analysis. And I was kind of watching for the ball to come in, and early doors, there was a few balls into the box, all right. Well, Willock put one in, and someone else put one in as well. I think, okay, here's Wilson's chance now. The ball is coming into the box from an early-ish type cross, not too early, but it's something he could maybe capitalize on. It didn't work out for him on the night. I think he probably does need a bit of a rest, but I think I said it to Martin in our chat at the end of the game. I think Eddie will play the exact same team next week. I think if he was to rest anyone, it might be Willock, but and bring on ASM. But no, I think he'll go with the exact same team, and he'll use Isak in the same way. He'll bring him on as a sub. But and as you were saying as well, Isak is a totally different player. He's a different type of striker than Wilson. I still think that Wilson he needs a break, and he will find form again. He will break the goal drought, and it will kick on from. But I still think he's a bit on the decline, and that's natural as well. But he can still do a job for us, and I think next season he'll be more a squad player than always start. And Isak is the future, as I think what Richie just said there.
Yeah, no, I think really, really, really good points. Just before I add my little 2 pence in, Tampa Toon, thank you very much for your $20 donation to the channel. Thank you very much. The super chat is open, so any donations to the channel is amazing, and it helps us grow and be able to give even more content to what we are currently giving. So thank you very, very much for that. Always appreciated from everybody that contributes. And Tam 2, absolutely spot on. My 2 pence on Callum Wilson. I don't think he had a bad game yesterday, but I think what Alexander Isak does, it blows Callum Wilson out of the water, because he can do so much more than Callum Wilson can. What I will say to you is Callum Wilson is currently in the middle of a transition in terms of the way in which he plays. He is, and Alan Shearer went through a similar.
Yeah, I was about to say Shearer was the same. Yeah.
Around the same age, is that you go from being an on the last man striker running in behind into the corners, what we saw Callum Wilson doing when he first signed for the club, to now having to manage his body because of injuries and having to play in a very, very different way. And what you see from Callum Wilson now is very much a back to goal, hold the ball up, big and strong, getting flick-ons here and there, and less of that running in behind, because that running in behind is taxing on the hamstrings, and we know his hamstrings aren't the strongest. And he's trying to ensure that he stays fit. And trying to make sure that he's fit enough to be in and around the box to get the balls in the net. The problem is, and Richie alluded to it, we talked about it on the review show, is that he's not getting the service. So you're not actually playing to Callum Wilson's strengths as of right now. And that's a big problem. My other issue is that, in our minds, Isak is the future. He is the future. He's the one that's going to be the main man. I think holding him back a little bit like what we did with Bruno in sort of January last year and into February, is that it's going to unleash him. And when he's unleashed, and this is what Hal knows, when he unleashes him, he's not going to come out of the team. He will be the main starter. My only issue with that is that Callum Wilson isn't good coming off the bench. Callum Wilson has to start. He's a starter, which then makes me think, what are they going to do in the future? Because Callum Wilson isn't the type of player to come off the bench. He could if we're winning 2-3-0 and we want to give Isak a rest and we just want to give Callum Wilson some minutes. But is Callum Wilson, like you just said, Daz, and I asked you about the motivation side of things, is he really going to want to be on the bench and come on for 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there long term? Probably not. So, go on.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, go for it.
If he wants to stay with Newcastle, stay in Europe / maybe the Champions League pretty soon, and be part of a team that will challenge for things, he's got to accept that's where his future will lie to some degree. And like there'll be injuries, there'll be games where he'll start. So if it's not like a case of he's going to be rotten on the bench, he will get game time. But sorry, carry on, Pete.
No, I think it's a more than valid point, and that might well keep him at the club. If we're playing European football, he'll get additional minutes. He'll play in European games here and there, and he'll get games when Isak's having a rest here and there. But I just think it's an interesting situation, because if you're going to keep a player like Callum Wilson, you need to provide him a certain level of service. The service that you talked about, Richie, and you're absolutely right, from Isak for the goal, Wilson would have lapped that up all day long. That's what Callum Wilson is on the pitch for, is to lap up chances like that. Anything in and around the penalty spot to the goal line, that's where Callum Wilson comes alive. And he just hasn't had those opportunities.
It's hard though when you play. It's hard though when you play with inverted wingers, though, because you're not going to naturally put crosses in for someone like Callum Wilson, or even when like Chris Wood, because obviously he thrives on having the high ball coming. We never ever played to their strength. Now we're playing with obviously Miggy coming in from the right, or whoever's on the left coming in, because they're all looking to come inside. You haven't got how we used to have, where you had the entertainers. We had Gillespie and you had Ginola, both footed on that side, and would just get past the man and whip the ball in for Shearer, Ferdinand, Tino, whoever. He hasn't got that because the style, and bear in mind, it's not just Newcastle, Tony. This is the Premier League football all around, where you tend to have this tend to be going away from the number 9. It's more having forwards who can play along the line in different positions. They can cut in, they can still beat a man and get the ball if needs be. And I don't know, that's one of the talks that Man City have had, haven't they? Have Man City changed their way of play? Yes, they've got Haaland, who's now banging the goals in for fun, but has that affected the way that Man City like to play? Because they're used to having the 3 forwards like Liverpool do, having like Jota or Diaz and Firmino, Salah or Nunes. This Nunes is probably the only one who's a real out and out striker realistically there. But to try to fit him, he's been out. He played out. I don't know if anyone watched the Chelsea game at the weekend, but he played out on the left for me, and then they played Gakpo to the middle, which I thought was a bit bizarre, because for me, you'd play Gakpo on the left and you'd play Nunes in the middle. So I think this is the whole thing with this Premier League evolution of, as you always do, you go through things where formations change, tactics change, when a different coach goes a different way, and then everyone tries to adapt that to counter it or such and such. And I think that's the case. It's like you both said, Wilson's at that stage now where he's going to have to try and reinvent himself like Shearer did to fit in with the way that he wants to play. And he's good enough to do it. It's just how long it's going to take him to do it, because obviously he's lost that half yard of place like Shearer did and stuff like that. He's now going to have to use his brain more so he can get ahead of the defenders around him and stuff like that.
But he needs the service.
He's got to have a service, yeah.
Because, like you said, we play with inside forwards that don't cross the ball. They like to cut inside and shoot, or to cut inside and continue to play. And that's what we talked about in the review show. I said, Maxi out on the right, Miggy out on the left, and whip balls in. But when you've got players that don't naturally cross the ball, Maxi does now and again. And to be fair, he has set up Wilson for a few goals, so he is capable of it. But Miggy does not like crossing the ball at all. He'd rather keep the ball and keep the ball ticking over than actually cross the boarding, which frustrates me sometimes. But some players are built like that. If we're going to keep Wilson long term, we need to have players in there that are going to provide him a service. We have to, otherwise it's just not going to work for him in isolation long term. But look, I think Corner Phrase put a decent comment in the chat. Actually, he put, he coming off the bench, Callum Wilson didn't do too bad for England, but I'd argue England were 6-1 up at the time, and it was a very, very comfortable game, and it was only one game in which he came off the bench. Really, I just think long term coming off the bench, he's not going to want to come off the bench, and it's very, very difficult when you're that type of player to come off the bench and make a real impact in a game. When you're an Isak and you've got the ball, and he did last night, whenever he gets the ball, he just wants to run at players. Whenever Maxi gets the ball, he just wants to run at players. And when players come on a sub late in games, that's the one thing that an opposition player does not want, is a player that's full of energy and willing to run at you time and time and time again. Didn't want it. Coletta Carr, decent defender, couldn't even keep toe with him because Isak was that good on the night. And yes, he on cue. He did get the red card, thankfully, because he was probably their best defender last night. And he will miss the return leg, and he did get a good wave goodbye. When that happened, within 5 minutes, my mate that I work with was a mad Southampton fan.
Your wife?
No, that as well. But yeah, no. He's obviously, we were talking about the game in the build-up with Southampton and all the rest of it, and he didn't message me throughout the whole night because we dominated them. And then he messaged after that point and said, what's Murphy doing? Like, he's an idiot. Not in those words. It was in worse words. But and I was like, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think he deserved it. Now, a lot of people on social media have come out and said that it was poor taste, that it wasn't the right thing to do. It was disrespect. What do you guys think about that? Or what are your opinions on that? Daz, I'll come to you first. Like, did you see an issue with it, or do you think it was actually pretty disrespectful?
Yeah, I was so disgusted by it, Pete. I loved it. I fucking loved it. It was brilliant. It was a TV gold, and like there the other day as well, where the Fulham manager was going mad at the referee, and Murphy's going, so and then people are saying today, give Murphy a lifetime contract. He has a pretty long contract already, but just for those kind of actions. Well, no, like Murphy, he's doing a job actually when he's come on the last couple of days matches. So fair play to him. And yeah, that was I loved it. Just the icing on the cake, and Bruno did a bit of a wave as well, but it wasn't captured as closely on TV. But yeah, so keep coming, Murphy. You're more than welcome to keep us entertained that way.
I think the Bruno one was really good though, because it was more of a, we just walked up and pretty much just roared at his face, didn't he? Like come on, the funny thing was, he did it, and then just, I'm going to walk back off to go to speak to Eddie quickly. Do you know what I mean? And then everyone else is kicking off, and he's just walking off. So he was caused a ruction for no reason, and then say that. But to be fair, regards Murphy, if I could have laughed my tits off, I would have last night. Seriously, it was that funny. It was. I can understand why some people are going, it's not professional and stuff like that, because they'll remember this for next week as well. But luckily Murphy probably won't be starting next week, so that he kicked up a height as soon as he got anywhere near the ball. However, when he does come on next week, hopefully whoever he's coming up against will be that knackered that they'll not be able to catch him anyway to give him a kick, because they'll be aiming for him for that. But on it was shithousery. It's fine. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. 100%. I loved it. And you know what? Coletta Carr, for some of his challenges, I think he was the one that took out Miggy in the first half. That was a horrible challenge. players like that deserved it. They were there to try and wind up our players. Linkiao, I think as well, the Brazilian defender.
Yeah, he was the one we had the Bruno, didn't he?
Just stupidness. So they fully deserve that 100%. And before we get someone else's opinion on that, Daniel Much, thank you very, very much for your £8 to the channel. Really, really appreciate it. And he put Isak Maxi were far more mobile up front. Wilson stayed central whilst Isak would drift wide to find space, and Maxi would come off the central like he did when Carl fouled him and got sent off. 100% better. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. A striker is always so much more difficult to mark when he's not static. If you're going to be a static striker, you're going to be that big player to hold the ball up, occupy the two centre backs. You've got to be damn good at it to be effective. But Isak just drifts left and right. A centre back is never at his best when he doesn't know who he's marking. When he knows he's marking, he's fine. When he doesn't know who he's marking, he's all over the place. He doesn't know where to stand, where to go. And that's why that's why we pay the money for players like that. But I want to get the opinion on the Jacob Murphy issue and the Bruno Gamera issue from somebody else. Let's welcome in Newcastle World Zone, the main man, Jordan Cronin. He's here. How you doing?
Hey, welcome, Jordan.
How you doing? All right?
All good, mate.
I hear you've been busy this evening.
Yeah, just a bit. Got back from Southampton about 4:00. Had a few bits to finish off work-wise. Getting a bit hectic now with final week of the transfer window. Newcastle looking to bring someone in. So, it's going to be a busy end, I think, as well as obviously the games as well. Good result last night. A positive start. One foot in the final.
Definitely.
Exactly, Jordan. A few outgoings as well, maybe. I see one was being mentioned just before we went on air as well. We'll start there.
Yeah, we'll come back to the Murphy stuff. We'll come back to the Murphy stuff. Let's crack straight into it. Why not?
Because that's a lot of people who tune into this show anyway. It's for the transfers. They don't care about the review. They watch the match themselves. They've made their own opinions already. They've moved on. They want to talk about the future, next week's game, and the what's happening in the transfer window. So, and we'll break them in gently. We'll talk about outgoings. I see Carl Darlow looks like he's going to Hull.
Yeah. I mean, the whole City vice chairman came out and said that it's a done deal. So it doesn't get more definitive than that. I think the only thing that Newcastle are waiting on is obviously Caldwell was on the bench as backup to Nick Pope yesterday. So because Martin Dubravka's cup tie, it sort of complicates the situation where it would be typical Newcastle to go and let Caldwell go, and then Nick Pope picks up an injury. Which touch wood, yeah, that's not going to happen. But I think Newcastle are waiting till the sort of the last minute to sanction that deal. But yeah, I mean it's all agreed. It's just a matter of when it's announced. As I say, all being well, Newcastle's goalkeepers stay fit. Loris Karius steps up as number 3. Obviously Martin Dubravka is number 2. So yeah, that one's likely to happen. In terms of other senior departures, I think that could possibly be it, apart from Ryan Fraser, who I think quite clearly has lost his appetite to compete with the likes of Joe Linton, Colin St. Maximin, a couple others as well, obviously, Miguel Almiron. So I think if an offer comes in for Ryan Fraser, I think Newcastle will do a deal. Eddie Howe's comments were quite interesting on Friday when he was asked about Ryan Fraser, and he said he would love to see the player in a Newcastle shirt again, which hints that obviously he'd like him to stay, but I think, as Eddie Howe said previously, he won't stand in the players' way if they don't want to be here. And I think that's probably the case of Ryan Fraser. As I said, he's lost his place in the team this season, and I don't think he has the appetite to try and win his place back.
Do you think there's been some form of fallout then? Do you think he's pulled a bit of a strop as to why he's not been in the squad at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think fallout's probably a bit strong, but I think Ryan Fraser's voiced his disappointment in not being in the team, and Eddie Howe said, "Well, come on and prove me wrong, ultimately. Let's keep training hard." But it's hard because you look at the form of Newcastle have shown this season. Obviously, I think the goals have dried up in recent weeks, but before that, obviously had a really strong defence. They were scoring goals for fun, especially Miguel Almiron, Joe Linton on the left as well. You've got Alan St. Maximin coming back from full fitness, which has been really difficult for Ryan Fraser to get back in. And as I say, I just think he's lost that appetite. I think he's only been in the match day squad once since the World Cup break, and that was at Leicester as well when Callum Wilson dropped out through illness. So as I say, I think he's very much out of favour. He clearly wants to move away from the club. And whether that happens, we'll just have to wait and see over the next couple of days. I think there's interest from likes of Southampton, and I think Brentford was on a team that was mentioned as well. So yeah, one to watch with him.
Do you think we'd let him go to someone like Brentford? Brentford are having a decent season. Would we want to strengthen them at this point? I don't think they'd want to probably sell to us if we were interested in any of their players.
Yeah, I suppose that, if you look at the league table now, Brentford are having a good season, but I don't think standing here now, Newcastle are particularly worried about Brentford and Newcastle's current league position. It's probably looking like a Brighton, for example, is going to be the one that really turns up on Newcastle for that sort of top 4 European race, because they've really hit the ground running in recent weeks. I think they've actually got better since the new manager came in and replaced Graham Potter. They're a really, really good side, Brighton, and on the day can beat anyone. So I think likes of Brentford, although probably be up in and around the top half, probably won't be a threat to Newcastle in the league this season. They've got only at the minute bigger teams to worry about. Manchester United, who are currently playing now and winning 1-0. Tottenham Hotspur, and as I say, I think Brighton will be one to watch in the sort of the remaining games of the season.
Yeah, interesting. We'll see. And you've just mentioned Man United are winning 1-0 away at Forest in the semi-final first leg. Rashford, a good goal to be fair, a good little run and finish from Rashford. Did any of us really expect it to be any different? the Man United situation. If we're going to get to the final, I think it was always going to be someone. It was always out of the two. It was always going to be Man United. But look, we're here to be surprised with that. And you talked about. Look, we'll get into it now because you talked about Ryan Fraser leaving. So we've got one left winger that could potentially leave in the January transfer window, and so it seems are likely to pick up another. Look, this has come out over the last few days. It's grown bigger and bigger, to the point where Fabrizio Romano has mentioned that we're interested. It's moved on even to today, to the point where Gordon has missed another day of training, as Keith said. Second day, the first day apparently was planned. The second day today, they can't give a reason as to why he's missing. So I think that's heated up the speculation even more. And Nick Edwards has mentioned as well about Newcastle not potentially overpaying. Look, where are we at from what you understand, Jordan, with regards to Anthony Gordon? And what's your own personal opinion about Anthony Gordon? Because let's face it, I think you can probably see in the chat, it splits opinions right down the middle. So I want to get all your opinions on Anthony Gordon as it stands right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the latest with Anthony Gordon, there's a lot of places reporting that the deal is close. But from my understanding, I'll explain why I don't think the deal is close. Because it's quite clear that the player wants to come to Newcastle. He's keen to leave Everton because of the upheaval that has obviously happened over the last sort of 6 months, where you're currently in the league. Ownership problems without a manager. Plenty of other issues as well. Obviously, when he left at Goodison Park a few weeks ago, he was sort of attacked by his own fans, if you like. So you can understand why he'd want to leave and would want to join Newcastle United, a club on the up. But the problem at the minute is that the valuation between the two clubs, the price tag, it's still a little bit apart. I think in the summer, Everton are pinning sort of their negotiations on the fact that Chelsea valued the player at £60 million in the summer. Newcastle won't do a deal for Anthony Gordon at £60 million, unfortunately. I think, everyone in this chat would agree that, if you're paying £60 million for Anthony Gordon, you could definitely go and spend that better elsewhere as well. So the moving part at the minute is the fact that the player is keen to come. And it could be a case where Anthony Gordon in the final days of the transfer window ends up requesting putting in a transfer request. Obviously, Newcastle United would be leading the race because they're the team showing the most interest at the moment. So no, you can look at it and you could probably say, yeah, maybe it is close because the player is really keen to come, but I don't define close offer. I define it on how close the clubs are in terms of agreeing a price tag. And at the moment, they haven't done that. That's not to say that they won't do that in the remaining days of the transfer window. I think I'd probably lean towards that being a yes, and I think they probably will come to some agreement at some point because getting on to Anthony Gordon as a player, my own personal opinion is that if Anthony Gordon is the only attacker that Newcastle signed this month, I think that's probably a little bit of a disappointment because I think they need more of a spark in the final third. If they were bringing in Anthony Gordon and 2 other players, I think everyone would be happy with that. But from my time watching Anthony Gordon, he's an Eddie Howe player because he grafts hard, he presses. As I say, we used the term on here before, and sorry if there's any PGs watching, but he's a shithouse. It's a player that opposition teams hate. Newcastle fans have had the fair share of hating Anthony Gordon because of his antics against Newcastle in the past. But if he's on your team, he's a player that you grow to love because fans love to hate players like that or hate to love players like that. So I think it would be personally, I do think it would be a good move. Ideally, I would like to see someone with a bit more creativity in the final third because I'm not sure if Anthony Gordon is that sort of spark that they currently need. Because I think in recent weeks they've looked like Newcastle in terms of goals. It looks like they have dried up a little bit. They're creating a lot of chances, which is promising, but they aren't scoring. Miguel Almiron's hit a little bit of a run given his recent standard where he hasn't scored. Callum Wilson looks a player that it hasn't looked the same player since the World Cup. So I think they're really in need of a real spark in the final third, a creative spark. I'm not sure Anthony Gordon is that, but what he will bring is, as I say, a lot of hard work rate. He'll implement what Eddie Howe wants. And look, I suppose who am I to sit here and criticise Newcastle bringing in Anthony Gordon, because if Eddie Howe believes he is a player that will improve the team, then Eddie Howe has got enough cash in the bank to do that. So yeah, and to sum up where the deal is, people say it's close. I've sort of explained there why I don't think it is close. Although, as I say, talks are ongoing, and a deal could be reached. And in terms of the player as well, yeah, it's a good signing. But I think ideally, if you were to sign Anthony Gordon as your only attacker this month, there would be a little bit, maybe not disappointment's the right word, but you get what I'm saying. Where ideally you would want a couple of others as well to come in and around him and provide a real spark in the final third.
Just before I come to the lads, you've obviously touched on from your perspective that you don't think it's as close as what others are maybe making out, and I'm inclined to agree with you because the fee is everything, isn't it? You don't get a deal, you don't sign a player without agreeing a fee, and if it's to be believed around a 20 million gap between an agreement, Everton want 60. Newcastle are willing to pay, as reports are saying, around 40, and that's, I think, with add-ons as well. So not an overall deal of 40, and as an initial payment, that is a relatively big gap. But it goes back to the point: the window closes on Tuesday evening. You almost rule out Tuesday because you're preparing for a second leg of a semi-final. So this deal is, we're at Thursday tomorrow. This deal needs to
Don't panic.
Yeah, if it's going to be done, you'd expect that we see, from my perspective, I would expect to see movement from tomorrow and quickly, especially from the point that you're making in that it's not the only deal that you would like to be done. But look, just like Richie, I'll come to you with Anthony Gordon, just from your perspective of the player, of the potential link. What do you make of it? Do you think he's a player that we should be targeting? Are you happy with it? Are you which side of the fence are you on with regards to that?
I think he is like Marmite, isn't he, for the fan base? It's like you either love him or you hate him. Like as Jordan said, when you have that sort of shithousery on your own team, you absolutely love it, but you hate it when it's done against you. But Jordan's also right. He's got the work ethic that Eddie Howe likes. The press. He works hard. He tracks back. But the other thing I noticed he's had a really bad season this year. Now it sort of goes back to the Steve Bruce era of Newcastle. We all knew that Alan Saint-Maximin was the only really realistically quality player that we had. A lot of everything went through him. You nullified him, and then Newcastle had no threat at all. Now, if you look at Anthony Gordon, he played well last season when he had Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison playing alongside him, because Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin on the day are good players as well, which means it takes the focus of the defenders away from them. Now, you look, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's pretty much been injured all season, carried that on from last year. Richarlison's, toddled off down to Spurs. So the only one, and Damari Gray isn't probably the same standard as Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin on his day. So that's a lot of, he's a lot to carry on young shoulders. Do you know what I mean? Who's still learning the game himself. So you don't know. It could be one of these where he's, people know he's a good player. So that putting one or two people, extra person on him, he's not getting the support because he hasn't got the extra quality around him when he's got the ball. Perhaps people not making the runs that need to be. I think what you'll see is you'll see a completely different Anthony Gordon at Newcastle, with Eddie Howe coaching him and guiding him on a day-to-day basis, but also playing with the extra quality on the pitch and in training on a day-to-day basis. I think you'll see a completely different Anthony Gordon. So because of all that, and the potential we've seen him have in the past, especially like last season and the end of the season before, when he was playing really well, and he's England under 21 as well. You don't play for England at that level, even if you're a bad player. Do you know what I mean? There's a player in there. It's just Eddie Howe having to get that player back out again, and I think he will. And to be fair, as John said, he's got money in the bank, Eddie Howe, and the fact that Ashworth's liked him for a long time, obviously knows his agent really well as well, and has built up that relationship for a long time. If they see what we've seen on a day and the shithousery that he's given Newcastle when he came up here, and they still want that player, and they'll be in contact all the time, no doubt. The relationship with Ashworth and his agent and Anthony Gordon's is as strong as to believe, then I suppose in a way it becomes a no-brainer. Is it the quality of the type of side we want? Like at least no, he's not. But at the end of the day, is he strengthening the department that needs strengthening of what we've already got? And the answer to that is yes. And that from now on, that's all we can do. We had a conversation, our chat last night. Willock and Longstaff didn't have a fantastic game last night. And that's the reason why you'll see them being squad players going forward. They're in the team now, but when you strengthen the midfield, it's a strengthen, so they become squad players. So you're getting better quality in and around them, which will also bring them on as well, as we've seen anyway, because both their qualities and abilities have got better because they've been playing with Joe Linton and Bruno in training every single day and every single week on the pitch. So you bring more quality in, and if the players have got the right character, which Willock and Longstaff have, and it looks like God will have, you bring that extra quality in, and it brings their level up as well. Unfortunately, as we discussed with Ryan Fraser possibly going out, he hasn't got that character to be part of that sort of thing, which is why he needs to go now. But everyone knows now, if you want to be a part of this Newcastle project going forward or be bought into it, you've got to be able to have the right character and the work ethic to be part of this squad.
Yeah. Great points, as always. Daz, your opinion on Anthony Gordon, just in general?
I'll summarize because I have spoken about before, and I'm going to team myself up for a question then for Jordan at the end of it. But for me, I actually liked Anthony Gordon last season. I was singing his praises, especially in the game against us. I said he had him down as man of the match. I thought he did really well. I think you mentioned Pete. He kept them up to some degree last season. This season, as Richie's pointed out, he hasn't had a great season in the bad Everton side in a club that's a bit of a mess at the moment, and they don't even know what style manager they want to bring in or who they want to bring in by the looks of it. And did they even see them linked with Zigic from Chelsea as well? They're trying to bring in another winger now, and an alternative to the other deal that got away from them. But I think he'd do well first. I think Eddie Howe will get the best out of him. He's young, and even if it didn't work out, we could resell him on again. But I think he'll do a job, and Dan Ashford knows what he's doing as well. When all go on, Forest.
Ooh. Is that the case?
Not so bad.
Sam Stewart.
Chris Wood's replacement on the weekend, Sam Surridge has just scored for Nottingham Forest, so could be a short-lived career for Chris Wood at Nottingham Forest.
Don't say that because he's coming back to us. We want him to do well. So
we do.
Brilliant.
We do. So in summary, I'd be happy to see him rock up. I know a lot of people wouldn't, and he's split opinion, but I'd welcome him. I think Eddie and Dan Ashford know what they're doing. But this leads me to another point, Jordan, and here is a bit of a loaded question.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
That's right, Eddie. It is a loaded question. Here it is. Jordan, in Hope's article, he said that they were looking at Anthony Gordon and they were thinking about a few more options. But any indication? Can you give us any clues? This is off the record. No one's watching this. Any off the record? Any of the names that we should be looking out for if the Gordon deal wasn't to go through?
Yeah, so I mean the main one at the moment, and mentioned the Chelsea trio last week, but Pack and Ziyech would be one that I would potentially look out for, because there's a contrary to beliefs, there's actually a good relationship between Chelsea and Newcastle because of Todd Bowley and knows Amanda Stavely and Murdoch Gudusi quite well. So from Todd Bowley's point of view, I think he'd be quite happy to loan the player to Newcastle. But from a playing point of view, I don't know if Graham Potter would be particularly happy with that, because although I think is there a 10-point gap or close enough 10-point gap between Newcastle and Chelsea at the moment, Chelsea still hold hopes of finishing in the top four. So would sending Ziyech to Newcastle strengthen them? Then yeah, of course it would. So that's another one. That's another alternative. Whether that comes off, we'll just have to wait and see. But as I say, Gordon at the moment, it's difficult to look past anyone else at the moment, because that is the deal that Newcastle are actively looking to do. Talks are ongoing all the time, and they want to do a deal. They're determined to do a deal. So I think they'll chase down Gordon until they're told no, or until it's impossible to do when the transfer window is closed. But I mean, I've mentioned Ziyech, but there's other alternatives, I'm sure, that unfortunately I don't know. I'll be pretty honest, I don't know.
Yeah, well, no, that's fine, Jordan. And I think it was indicating maybe looking in Europe as well, but we'll see what comes to light. Hopefully Gordon gets over the line, or maybe it's someone else as well as Gordon. But yeah, I cannot see Ziyech going to rocking up with Everton though. So I wouldn't be looking at that happening to allow Gordon to come to us. No way he's going to Everton.
You look at the type of money that Ziyech is on, and look, Ziyech is a good player. He's a good player. We've talked about him on the show already, and he would be a good addition to Newcastle if we could get him in. But with the money that he's on, I'd be shocked. I say shocked, probably not actually, that Everton would pay that sort of money to get him in. But like you said, I don't think he would want to go there. But Yano's raised a good point. He's put Gordon for 40 million when Ziyech's 25 million smells like when we paid 25 million for Willock and they go out and spend 30 on Odegaard and get Odegaard in. Could it be a similar situation that we're overpaying for someone like Gordon, even at 40 million? Look, Daz knows my thoughts on how much I think we should pay for Gordon, but do you think 40 million is too much, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, because if you look at Anthony Gordon's Premier League career, he hasn't actually played that many games at top flight level. I think his real breakthrough season was last season. And don't get us wrong, he had a terrific season last year. He was Everton's bright spark in a season where obviously they struggled. I think he was their player of the year, and deservedly so, because as I've seen that they played Newcastle twice last year. The game at St James's Park, I thought Everton looked really poor, but Gordon stood out, and as I mentioned earlier, he's a player that really riled up Newcastle fans because of the way he plays. So yeah, would 35-40 million be an overprice? Yeah, I think it probably would, but I think you've got to look at the market, and I think Chris Wood's departure has left Newcastle needing a body, and as we've seen in January, prices do tend to be inflated. So if that's a player Eddie Howe wants this month, then I think it's in the club's right to pursue the deal at a price. Obviously not 60 million, because that's beyond a joke. But 35-40 million, maybe in this market, maybe is possibly a little bit more acceptable, given the prices we see players going for these days. But I think it's very difficult to put £40 million price tag on Anthony Gordon's head when he's still relatively new to Premier League football. But as I say, on the flip side of that as well, if the club see value in doing that deal at that price, then I suppose we've just got to back them, because really have Newcastle United got a transfer wrong yet? No, I don't think they have. They've signed really well with the money that they've spent relatively low money, obviously apart from Alexander Isak, but based on the glimpses I've seen from him, he has every chance of being a £60 million player. The only player you'd say Newcastle probably overpaid for was Chris Wood, but they had to do the deal at the time. I had to go and sign him at the time. They were desperate. Callum Wilson was injured. They needed a striker in. They had a release clause. He was the only striker available with Premier League experience, so they'd done the deal then. But to be fair to Newcastle, they've actually, in a way, made their money back off Chris Wood, because say they've loaned him out for a loan fee to Nottingham Forest, and if that deal becomes, that'll be £15 million, and £15 million for a 32-year-old striker. Okay, you've lost 10 million from the price that you paid last year, but as players get older, prices go down, and I think Newcastle to only take a £10 million hit off Chris Wood is actually incredibly good business.
Yeah, definitely. And pray that he scores the goals that keeps him in the league.
Go on, Woody.
That Woody coming towards us. But look, we've got over 300 watching on the channel right now. Thank you, all 300 plus that are watching for the Loaded Transfer Show with the Loaded Boys and Jordan. If you haven't already, click the like button. And if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe. We are on the way to 6K, moving there nicely. So come and join the Loaded family and click that subscribe button. I'll give my little 2 pence on Anthony Gordon. He's a bastard.
Continue, please.
I'll continue, or shall I just leave it there? But we've got 11 bastards in our team, and he would fit right in with our players from a personality point of view, or certainly on the pitch. I haven't got an issue with that. There's a lot of talk of the fact that he caused some issues with Newcastle players. I was at the game, Everton at home. I don't care. Those things get put under the rug. If people like Shaw can let that go when he walk with, if Gordon walks into the club and Shaw can shake his hand and go, you know what, whatever, and move on from it, so can I. I'm not going to hold a grudge if they're not going to hold a grudge. That's my perspective on it. The one thing I will say, I will 100% agree with Richie in that Gordon hasn't had a good season. However, I didn't expect anything different because he's got a manager that's not a coach. He's got a manager that doesn't know how to coach players to make them better. Frank Lampard, who is no longer at the club, is a manager that likes to buy players that are ready to go. And will stay at that level and will just coach, not even coach them, will just manage them to play a certain way. He does not know how to make a player better. We have a manager that not only is a good man manager, that knows how to talk to players, he can coach them and make them better on the pitch. And I could list 7 or 8 players that we all know about who have made improvements on the back of that. There is no doubt that if Anthony Gordon comes to Newcastle United, that first and foremost, he won't be first choice, which some people may or may not be happy with. Alistair Maximin on that left-hand side is the first choice. We just need to get him back to fitness. He will be an alternative. But I tell you what, the one thing about Anthony Gordon is he can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play as a forward, he can play in so many different positions. And this is why, in my opinion, and Jordan, you were there, in the press conference, 2 press conferences ago, he said, when he talked about Chris Wood, that the replacement wouldn't be like for like. And it won't be like for like because he wants a player that's versatile. And if you look at our players in that front line are all versatile. Apart from Callum Wilson, he's the only one that's not. All of them can play in various different positions and move within the game. And that's what he wants. You know why? It's because the best managers play with players that are versatile. You look at Liverpool. You talked about, to be fair, I think it was yourself, Richie. Did you mention about Nunes playing on the left-hand side in one of the games?
Yeah.
And Gakpo in the middle. Nunes has played out there, not very often, but played out there, comes inside. You've got Diaz, you've got Jota that can all switch in different positions. You've got Man City. Sometimes, apart from Haaland, before Haaland came in, you don't know who the striker was. They were playing Foden as a striker one time. They need fluidity in their team. And that's what Eddie Howe has learned from his coaching and going and seeing these other managers, is that he needs a team, if they're going to be successful, to be fluid. And someone like Anthony Gordon, that's not quite at the level to be smashing it right now, but let's not forget he's 21, has the ability to get to that level. And I think with coaching, he will not only become a first team regular in whatever position, I think he could go on and be very, very successful at Newcastle. My only issue is that and this is just my own personal issue, I don't want to pay Everton any more than £40 million. I just don't want to. And the reason being is because the less amount of money that they get, the better, because I want them in the Championship next season. But at the same time, I want to take their better players, and he is their better player. There's no doubt he wants out. So I think a deal will get done. And don't expect miracles straight away. Let Eddie Howe get to work with him. If he does come into the building, let him get to work with him. Let's get behind him. Let's support him. Let's show him the love that Everton haven't done recently and have treated him like absolute crap. Let's show that we're a different fan base. Get behind him. Get the support in, and let's show him that actually Newcastle is different, and give him the love that he hasn't had in the last 6 months. That's my opinion on Anthony Gordon. Whether or not the deal gets done, I think it does, but let's see. So that's just my little 2 pence on that. However,
Pete, just before you move on, I've just been talking to the chat. Our friend Blaze, who's on his Avon round tonight, has a reliable source in the Blue Nose camp, and apparently Anthony Gordon has handed a transfer request in. Apparently the source that it comes from, a lot of the Everton fan base listen to this source. He's like the Everton equivalent of Fabrizio Romano, apparently. So if that's anything to go by, Anthony Gordon has handed a transfer request in.
Calm down. Here we go. Sorry.
Am I seeing Jordan's fingers go like that? He's ready to get that confirmed.
Newcastle World as we speak. But yeah, when you put that in the chat, Richie, you said it's up on Blaze. I thought, what website's that? I didn't even know you were Chris.
The old Blaze is on the button again. Obviously, using his scouts routes to find the latest information on all things Everton. So let's look. That's the next. That for me, that's possibly the next phase. Wouldn't surprise me if it happened. He's desperate to get out. And look, Jordan, you alluded to that earlier, that he's desperate to leave the club. And from what we've heard, he is already keen to come to Newcastle. So who's to say that he's not happy on? He's more than happy on losing his fee that he would get leaving the club at Everton to come to Newcastle. I'm sure we'll pay him very handsomely for coming to us. So let's wait and see. Look, as we said, we've only got a few days left in the window for us to act. We need to act quickly. So I imagine this situation will run very, very quickly. But going back to the point, so Anthony Gordon's one that we're looking at. Ziyech is another one that could potentially be there if the Anthony Gordon thing doesn't come about as such. We are starting to narrow, me and Daz talked about this before, we are starting to narrow our search now. I don't know if you agree, Jordan, with regards to that our search is very narrowed coming towards the end of the window. And from my perspective, and I want your perspectives on this as well, boys, is that I think, we're looking at least two positions. I think we're looking at that forward, playing off the sides, potentially through the middle as well. But I think we're also looking for that central midfielder, that number 6, potentially. And look, we know that there have been links with various different players. We've talked about them before, the likes of Tielemans. We've been linked with previously Manu Kone as well, who's a terrific player. And would be a great signing for anybody in the Premier League, in our opinions. We've also been linked to the like of McTominay as well. That's for sure. But look, from your perspective, Jordan, with it being so close towards the end of the window, do you think there's a possibility of us going for any of those? And I'll throw Neves in there as well, because he was someone that we were looking at before. Is that still a potential, or do you think we might just stick to the one now at this point?
Yeah, so I mean the central midfield position is a conversation that has gone very quiet, from what I've heard anyway, in terms from what I've been hearing now at the start of the window. It was seen as an absolute that Newcastle go and sign a central midfielder because of John Joe Shelby's injury. But I think now we've got closer to the end of the window and closer to John Joe Shelby's return, because John Joe Shelby's due back, I think, the middle of next month. I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle do stick with what they've got, which for me I think is a risk. But I think with what I would say to that is as well is that Newcastle will only sign a player that is ready to go straight into the starting 11. And if they don't have, or they don't think that right player is available, they'll wait till the summer and go with what they've got. Because that's always the risk in January, as you mentioned before, Pete. That it feels like the pool is shortened, which it has, because Eddie Howe said it in previous press conferences that there's not a lot of players you can sign in January that he feels can improve what they've currently got. And as he said, people I've seen comments in the chat saying, look, Newcastle need to build a squad, and I agree with that. But January isn't the time to sign bit part players or rotation players. They need starters. And if Eddie Howe doesn't feel that, for example, a centre midfielder or the right centre midfielder is available, then they might not do the deal, and they'll bank on John Joe Shelby being fit in 4 weeks' time. Again, as I mentioned, that is a risk, but that could happen. I think there probably will be 2 incomings. As I say, I think there'll be a forward, and then I think the other position as well could be a right back as a backup to Kieran Trippier. Harrison Ashbury at West Ham, still a player that is on the radar. We also had I forgot his name now. Fresneda, sorry, from
Fresneda, yeah.
But what I say, there was strong interest there, but it now looks like from reading other people's reports, it looks like he's off to Borussia Dortmund, which is fair enough, because Borussia Dortmund have proved time and time that they're very good at developing young players, and they do often go to Borussia Dortmund and end up getting big European moves in 3 to 4 years after as well. Just look at Jude Bellingham right now. Erling Haaland obviously was another one, so I can understand his reasoning for potentially going there. So that I think there will be 2 incomings. I think Newcastle should sign a centre midfielder, but I'm just not sure they believe the right player is available right now. So they could wait until the summer, which, as I say, I think is a little bit of a risk, but I do understand it from the club's point of view. They've got to sign starters in January. You can't just be signing players for the sake of it. You've got to sign the right players, and obviously the summer, because it's longer, that's when you can really look to build a squad. Because if you sign starters, which they need to do, the likes of Sean Longstaff, Joe Willock, etc., they'll be the ones that become squad players. And I think we've probably seen in recent weeks is that's probably what they should be. No disrespect to them players, but we've seen in recent weeks the lack of goals. Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock, for how brilliant they are outside of the box, and the work they do off the ball, the quality in the final third, it really is lacking in terms of that final pass and that final finish, which is really frustrating. And look, everyone loves them 2 players. They've got a lot of affection towards them. I'm sure that the fans feel that way. But to be a successful team, you need to be ruthless, and you need to upgrade on those type of players as well. So, centre midfield position, I'm not too sure they will sign anyone. They could wait till the summer for that one.
No, it's going to be an interesting one. I think we do. I think you're right. I think we do need another central midfielder coming in. Shelby's had 2 big injuries already this season. He got the injury at Benfica. He was out for 12 weeks or so. Came back, played a few games, and it is now out with a calf injury. It's not the first time he's had a calf injury. This is a recurring injury now for him. He's picked up a number of calf injuries since he's been at Newcastle, and he's been out for a lengthy time for each one of them. Now, if we're hanging our hats on John Joe Shelby, and he picks up another injury that puts him out for another 6 weeks, that could really put us in a real difficult position. Look, Richie, I think I already know the answer to this, but do we need a centre midfielder? There's one, not necessarily a centre midfielder, but can play in our formation that you brought up in the chat earlier on today, and it's this man. Nicolo Zaniolo. He's been lingering around, this guy, for the whole of January. Would he be someone that you'd bring in? Is this the kind of guy that we could potentially bring in and do something with? It's looking like there's a deal there to be done.
I think if you put that picture back up, what you've just been on, I don't know if it was Daz or you put that up, but I think that's the only way you could do a deal. You could only take him on a loan to the end of the season, without the obligation to buy. You'd have to have, as it says there, you'd have to play at least 75% of his performances this season, because, as we discussed in our chat, he's had 2 major ACL injuries, which is obviously it's hindered him going forward, full stop, when he's been at Roma and the international team as well. But it also puts doubt on a move. You've got to think is, what's the reason why, if he's this good a player, why are Roma also looking to get rid of him? And the fact that they're only willing to let him go on those terms, you start to think, what's his character like as well? How does that fit into all of it? So for me, the only way you can take him, and as we also said, he isn't going to be first choice. He isn't going to be second choice. He's probably 3rd or 4th choice in this pool of, as Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth have said before, for every position that we're looking to look at, there's at least 3 or 4 people that will fit that one position, and they'll work their way down the list. Zanolo is probably going to be third or fourth choice on that list, in my opinion. But there's no way you want to be spending 35 million as an obligation to buy without seeing him on the pitch and being reliably on the pitch as well. It's just an absolute. You can't loan him with an obligation. He's been that injury prone. It's just, it wouldn't be worth the risk to do it permanently. Now you'd have to do it as a loan.
Yeah, it's have you heard anything with regards to Zaniolo, Jordan? Has there been anything in those things? Because as we've already talked about, it seems to be a deal that's not gone away. Spurs have been heavily linked with him as well, but so have we, and it seems like he is one of those players on the list.
No, he's not a name that's been brought to my attention. I think it's been stories pushed from Italy, and stories from the Italian media. I always tend to take with a pinch of salt, purely because when we've seen when Newcastle first got taken over, and it was the Italian media that was linking Newcastle with the likes of sort of Gareth Bale, Kylian Mbappe, sort of all our big deals where players are in the 30s and looking for big contracts, and as it's proven to be the case, Newcastle are looking for young up and coming players. So for that reason, I don't tend to read anything or believe anything from the Italian media. I don't believe he is a player under consideration from my understanding.
No, it'll be an interesting one. Like we spoke about Richie last night. It's risky business going in for someone that's had major ACL injuries. I mean, we could look back to, I think I mentioned the chap Demba Ba, who had similar. He had an ACL injury. We took a risk on him for free. He ended up being a great signing for us and had no issues for the rest of his career. But he's had two, and that's always a concern. We took a risk on Wilson, who also had two, and he's been okay. But for me, before he had those injuries, he was a player that Roma never wanted to let go. They literally built their future on him. And the fact that they're quite willing to get him out the door in some way, shape or form raises a concern for me, raises a concern that they have concerns about him. So for me, I think it's a very, very risky move if it is. So the fact that you're saying, Jordan, that it seems like it's been pushed from the Italian side of things actually fills me with a little bit of a confidence. But there's one player that we know that we're interested in, and we know Daz loves his South Americans. He loves his South Americans. Yeah, like Foxy as well, and he's in the chat. Foxy knows his stuff.
I believe it. Foxy is actually a South American agent.
He's got to be, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, I see him in the chat. Yeah. Every week. Where's my this one, for example, about the myths from the January, and you have to overpay in January. But there was another example to my starred comments. I'll get it in a second. He's always praising the South American players, and I like that because I like that my South American players as well. But yeah, let's go there, Pete. And the talk of Franca, yeah, and this talk today of that there's been 3 Newcastle bids from Newcastle, the last of them being something like 20 million, but they're looking for a 50% still-on fee as part of that. Yeah, from Charlie.
Yeah, friend of the channel. Put on their third bid, around 16 million euros rejected. Mateus Franca, according to Brazilian journalist, Flamengo want 20 million euros and a 50%, as Daz said. Interesting one there. He is a young lad. It looks like, from the little snippets that we've seen, I haven't actually watched him play, but I've seen little bits. Looks like a promising talent. Jordan, obviously, it's, we had Fabrizio Romano say that we submitted a bid about with regards to that. So, is that a player that's coming in Do we think that that's a deal that will get done between now and then? There was actually, I think, at one point a few days ago where there was a picture with him and his agent at the airport, and I think that got a lot of Newcastle fans excited, thinking
Saw that.
he was already on his way over to Europe, like deal was already agreed. But what do you know from that perspective?
Yeah, it's just that he's a player that's currently under consideration among Newcastle scouts, transfer officials, whatever you want to call it. In terms of bids, I'm not privy to that information. I haven't heard of any bids going back or forth. I think that story was a Fabrizio Romano special, I think. So, but yeah, I mean, as I say, he is a target. Can't say if the deal will get done now, but the South American market since Dan Ashworth has arrived is one to really watch out for, because you look at some of the deals that Dan Ashworth done at Brighton from South America. One player who's currently linked with Newcastle at the moment is Brighton midfielder Moses Caicedo, and he's a pretty special talent. I've just seen a comment there saying they'd signed him for 4.5 million.
Yeah.
He's comfortably already a £40 million centre midfielder, if not a bit more, just given how quality he is. Because when Newcastle played down Brighton and earlier the season, he was the best player on the park. So Dan Ashworth has real contacts in the South American market. So considering deals like that isn't anything unusual. But yeah, I can't say if he's going to sign or not. I just know that he is, a player that is being looked at and constantly monitored, because he's had quite the rise in Brazil.
Interesting. Looking at that South American market, I think it's strange for us to be looking at players in that sort of direction. We've not really been accustomed to buying too many players. Certainly young wonder kid potentials from South America. So that should be a really interesting one to keep an eye on. That's for sure. One player that isn't linked, but I think wouldn't be a bad signing, particularly as a midfielder at this moment in time. Not been linked recently, but Edson Alvarez. He's a player that was linked with us in the summer that I think would be a tremendous number 6 that could come in and do a great job for us, that could really kind of add some steel to that midfield. Not necessarily the creativity that we want, but what it does, it would potentially allow somebody like Bruno to get forward and be that creative spot further up the pitch, which is what we all want, really. I'll just add there, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Do we think from our own perspectives, either a yes or no, give our opinions on whether we will test the waters with Tielemans between now and the end of the window? Daz, I'll come to you first. Oh,
why not? Why not? This is one that's always I'm kind of go flip flopping with my answer on this one. I would. It's like a deadline day kind of swoop. Throw Leicester an offer and see what happens. Where we are now, it looks like it's not going to happen. He's going to walk away to his choice of club in the summer. But why not?
Yeah. Richie, do you think there's a chance that we test the waters? He's got less than 6 months left on his contract now. Do you think we'll test the waters between now and the end of the window?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think it's one that you could possibly leave to the latter stages of next week. Probably Sunday or Monday. I think it's probably a deal that could get done quickly if they decide to go that option. So it's not something you could rule out, but it just depends on if they're going to do the charge. They're looking, obviously, we know that there's a lot of talk over Franke. Obviously, the longer that gets towards Tuesday, the less likelihood that's going to get done, because obviously you've got to get him over from Brazil, get him through obviously his medical and stuff like that. So it's a lot harder to do. So it might be something where you look, 15-20 million for Tielemans with 6 months left of his contract. You'd expect Leicester to potentially snap that up rather than losing them for now in the summer. So for me, it's probably one of those ones where he could do it towards the latter days in the window. I think, to be fair, I think our window realistically shuts on Monday. I don't think they'll probably be doing any business realistically on the Tuesday. I think they'll probably be wanting to focus on the semi-final on Tuesday. So if realistically, I think they'll probably want to get it done by Monday. So, typical deadline day for us. No transfers probably coming on deadline day as per usual, but at least it's for more positive reasons this season.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Jordan, will come to you.
Just on that.
Go on.
Yeah, sorry, it has kicked in, so I'll be talking over you for the next little while. Eddie Howe seemed to indicate that there would be people doing the deals if deals need to be done on the day. Anyway, he will be out of the picture, and they'll be there to shake hands if they need to shake hands. So I was ruling out any activity as well. But when I heard that, I said maybe there's something. If something moved, they could react. Jordan. Thoughts?
Yeah, just laughing at Daz's delay.
We do every week or every show. The delay always kicks in randomly at different times.
With Tielemans at the moment, no, I don't think Newcastle will test Leicester's resolve, but that could change because the January transfer window or transfer windows in general, it's forever changing. So I wouldn't sit here and rule it out, but at the moment it looks unlikely. I think that was it. I think that's all Daz said there. Oh, sorry, and I was talking about the cup game. Actually, obviously the second leg falls on deadline day. I think Newcastle could do business on deadline day. Ideally, they won't want to because Eddie Howe will be preparing for the biggest game in however many years. Don't know if anyone in the chat wants to see how big the Leicester game, not Leicester, Southampton game is in X amount of years. But you've got people working above them that would be in a position to do a deal if they were in a desperate situation and it did come down to a deadline day. But obviously, ideally, you want to have the business done before then.
Yeah, definitely. Be interesting. I don't know. I've got a feeling we're going to have a few surprises. I really do. I just could be wrong. I just feel that there could be a surprise signing somewhere that we're not expecting, because the one thing we talked about is that Newcastle's pool of players are so bigger than I think that we even realise that we're looking at. Bruno Guimaraes is a perfect example in January. I don't think anyone realised that he was on the radar. We knew he was a good player, but nobody ever thought until it was nearly agreed that it was even a player that was on the list. So I just think that it's going to be a real interesting one. That's for sure. And of course, look, I never go for a transfer show without mentioning him. Don't rule it out. It doesn't need a conversation, lads. It doesn't need a conversation. All I'm saying is that he's back playing now. Had a subs appearance, did okay. Don't rule it out. But if not, it doesn't matter. We'll be there in the summer.
Tune in on deadline day for Loaded Match Day Live to catch Pete crying come 11 o'clock.
No.
With happiness.
No tears, because we've got the summer ahead. And if we can offer him European, even Champions League football, who's to say that deal doesn't get done first, and there won't be tears then. You can guarantee that.
I'm coming for everybody then.
Sheer happiness. That is for sure. But no, look, in all honesty, is it going to likely to get done with James Maddison? No. It's too close to the window. But your capacity to go and get a player and put the money down. We talked about it many a time with Isak. 2 days before we got Isak, it was, or 2 or 3 days before, Howe was saying not likely to get any more players. And then Wilson gets injured, and before you know it, Isak's on his way to Tyneside. It's one of those things. It can happen at any point. So never ever rule it out. But there's lots of other players that we've been linked with, and will continue to be linked with. Conor Gallagher, another one we've been linked with, is in Palace potential loan. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. I think that one's gone cold, hasn't it, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's gone cold. I just don't think it'll happen. But as I said, no, I wouldn't rule it out. No.
Interesting. Okay. So there's deals there to be done. I think there's some questions in there. Flipping out, just look, 27.
Yeah,
there's a few in there. Some of them we might have already covered, but I don't know if there's any that you want to fire at, Jordan.
Yeah, I can fire them, but it might get messy if I'll be just finishing one and Jordan will be answering.
I'll tell you what, do you want me to just flick some up?
Yeah, go for it. Go for
it. Interesting one from Tom Dixon. Jordan, do you think Shelby will leave?
No, I don't.
Neither do I.
Linked with Besiktas. I'll add to that one, and it's a question for all of us. Do we think he'll leave at the end of the season?
I think. No. I think it's an interesting one, these contract situation at the moment, because we were led to believe in the summer that if he made 2 appearances, it would trigger a contract, automatic 1-year contract extension, which Shelby said, and he admitted that himself. And it was in Austria. He said that he told the press then, because then that 2 appearances took him to, I think, 200 in total for Newcastle United. But since then, it's been clarified that Jonjo Shelvey actually has to start 2 games between now and the end of the season to trigger that 1 year. So
is it starts rather than appearances, Jordan?
Yes. Sorry, yeah. So 2 starts he needs to activate that 1-year contract extension. So I'd imagine, I don't know. It's a tough one, really, because if the current midfield 3 stay fit, then Shelby probably has a bit of a battle to get back in. And I think, but look, Newcastle, this is me speaking with no context behind this, but Newcastle might look at it and go, well, actually, at the end of the season, Jonjo Shelvey has, I think he's in his 30s now. Do they want a £80,000 player on the books? If they can avoid giving him the 2 starts and he leaves, then they might look at that as wages off the books. But what I would say that as well is that if Eddie Howe feels that he needs him, then they know there'll be no hesitation in starting Shelby and triggering that 1-year contract extension. But from the way House spoke about him previously, he was asked about him on Friday about the Besiktas links, and he said it was a story that surprised him and that he remained a valued member of the squad as well. So I'd imagine Jonjo Shelvey probably still has a future beyond the summer. But it's just up to him now to get fit, because I think in a way he's probably been the sort of the victim of his own doing, in terms of he's trying to get up to the standards of that, the way Eddie Howe's teams play, the sort of the high press, the constant moving around the pitch. Shelby done extra work in pre-season to do that and to get up the standard, and fair play to him for that. But I think he's actually done himself in the long run, because he's picked up 2 long-term injuries this season. So it's really important that when Jonjo Shelby comes back from this calf injury, he remains fit, and he reminds, like some myself and supporters as well, just what a key player he can be for the football club, because the start 11 that stayed up last season, he was a key member of it.
Richie, I'll come to you. At this moment in time, if they're both fit, who do you play, Shelvey or Longstaff? Who's ahead of each going into the back end of the season, if both are fit and ready to go? Oh, he's on mute. He's on mute.
So yeah, I had to put on mute. The hedgehog was kicking off behind us, so I had to put on mute.
He's back.
For me, I think it's quite easy. For me now, I believe that Shelvey's the 5th choice centre midfielder if he includes Joe Linton as a centre midfielder. So obviously that puts Longstaff and Willock as well as Joe Linton and Bruno ahead of him. So for me, that on that question will be Longstaff. Pretty much mainly down to you've got to look at the work rate and the ground he covers per game. That's something that Shelvey's never ever going to be able to do, especially with his calves being like glass. Do you know what I mean? The dead fragile. That's just not going to work out in the way that Eddie Howe wants to play. We're not that sort of player now who needs a deep lying quarterback, centre midfielder. All that centre midfield now has to have a lot of energy, has to be able to get up and down the pitch. They've got to be able to press in the right areas at the right times. Shelvey just doesn't fit that role now, unfortunately. Yeah, he's been a fantastic servant for the club. It would be nice to go and get a Carabao Cup winners medal to finish his Newcastle career on. But I think realistically, I think that he's done now at Newcastle, unfortunately.
Interesting. Daz, are you the same? Do you think he'll leave at the end of the season, or do you think he'll get those 2 starts? It might be forced on us, we don't know. But do you think he'll get those 2 starts if all players are fit to trigger that new deal or to trigger that extension on his current deal?
I think John Joe Shelvey will be staying no matter what. The reason being, Michael Palmer has put a list of players here that need to go in the summer, or like there's a few mascots in there as well, and a few that we need to offload while we can get some value for them. Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like, and look, they are serving a purpose. Like Richie and Dummett, there to me, they're mascots. I'm sorry, they did pay their dues for Newcastle. When we needed them, they were there, but now we've moved on. And I think Shelvey will hang on for a while. We'll need him for Europe and to be a bit part player. A bit like what Wilson I imagine is going to be. And we know that Eddie Howe doesn't make the changes, won't make a clean sweep and get rid of everyone. He'll do it gradually, and he'll want to keep the influences there. And when that story of the Turkish one came out, I ruled it out straight away. I checked with my contact; it was ruled out straight away. Didn't hope he said it wasn't happening either. But catch up. Keep up, Kobe. But no, he's staying. He's staying. He's not going anywhere yet.
Interesting. I think Shelvey goes in the summer. I think he leaves. I think the big thing about John Joe Shelvey, 2 big things, and I think they've already been touched on. I think Jordan and Richie both touched on the points. One, his legs are not there to play the way that we want our midfielders to play. The second thing is finances. When you're on 80 grand a week, you need to be one of the players that's playing regularly in the team. And he's been one of our highest paid players for a long time now. And let's face it, that 80 grand a week could go on paying a first team player. You take that 80 grand away and you put that on, someone just put in the chat, 2 players that they would like to sign in the summer as their number 1 priorities. One was Maddison, one was Diaby. Whoever we sign out of either of those, you put that 80,000 a week towards their wage. That's a huge chunk towards that. And all you've got to do is find the transfer fee, which is what we're likely to do in the summer because we'll have more money to play around with. It just makes sense to let someone like that go. Or you pay that 80 grand a week to your replacement that comes in as a number 6 and you go out and buy someone big. So I think there's valid points all round, and there's valid points to keep him because of Europe. Daz, you're absolutely right. Keeping him to play and be a part of Europe. He's good on the board. He controls the ball. Playing away from home in European football, you need to have that level of control, not necessarily all combative, all out and out intensity. So he could add to that. But for me, the thing that lets him down is his injuries. You can't count on him. And we've spent years and years and years counting on players that have just constantly been injured. And I think we need to move away from that. That's just my opinion from that perspective. Interesting one, throwing it your way. Jordan, question for Jordan from sorry, Daz. Question for Jordan from Daniel Much. Any truth in the Maxi AC Milan links. Lots of Newcastle fans getting very, very animated about these particular links. Any truth in them? What are your personal thoughts on Maxi potentially leaving?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Alan St. Maxim leaves the football club this month, and I don't think he should leave the football club this month either, because I'm at risk of sounding like Eddie Howe here, but he's got a big part to play in the second half of the season. Look, he's taken a bit of time to fully get over his hamstring injury. I think he's really lacked a bit of match sharpness. But yesterday against Southampton, and in the 25 minutes he was on the pitch, we've seen that that was the Alan St. Maxim that we've all came to love, because I thought he was brilliant in the 25 minutes that he came on. And Eddie Howe said after that as well, it looks like he's getting back to his best. So I don't think Alan St. Maxim would be a player that he'd be willing to let go. In the summer, I don't know, possibly it could be revisited in the summer where they look to move St. Maxim on. But with that as well, it's looking very likely they're going to have European football, so they're going to need squad depth. So yeah, to answer the question, I don't think Alan St. Maxim will be going anywhere this month, and I think he has a big role to play in the second half of the season.
Right, interesting. Daz, you the same mindset?
Yeah, exact same as Jordan there. He's not going anywhere. I called bullshit on the story straight away when I saw it. I know Martin put a link in our chat as well. ASM is saying, I think it's coming out of to see Gordon coming in and maybe taking competing with ASM in his space, and they're putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 22. Yeah, no, I think that the relationship is good with Eddie and ASM, and we know as well that the relationship is good with ASM and Isaac. So I think we are going to see better things to come from ASM towards the rest of the season, and that will make him play a major factor in whether we look to sell in the summer or not. He could be our hero yet.
Yeah, you're right. It could well be. Richie, your perspective? ASM staying or going?
I don't think he'll go this month. I always said, and I said this back in the summer as long with Mark, I think this season's going to be a big audition for ASM, whether he's part of the project going forward. You look at him before he did his hamstring, at Wolves, he was fantastic. That goal that he scored against Wolves, that's just quality. There's not many players can do that for Newcastle United. I think he's still trying to find his feet coming back in. And obviously, he now knows he's in a position the way that Newcastle play and how well the season's gone. He can't shirk anything now. We can't carry players anymore. We can't have like we used to have the mercurial French players of like ASM and Robert and Ben Arthur, where you can let them go forward and just toddle back when they want it. It's not part of the game plan anymore. You've got to be putting the hard work in defensively when we haven't got the ball. And he seems to be doing that more when he's been coming back on since the World Cup break. It's whether he can do that from the out and out kick off, or if he starts a game rather than when he just comes on and perhaps his opponent's a bit more tired, so that it's easy to track back and stuff. If he gets that defensive work ethic right, he could be part of this club for a long time. If he doesn't, it's touch and go in the summer, which way Newcastle will go with him, in my opinion, anyway.
No, that's a fair point. These links about January, I just think are a load of rubbish. I think it's just generated to create separation in the fan base and to unsettle ASM. I think that's what it's boiled down to. I don't even think ASM goes in the summer, personally. I think he stays, especially if we play European football. We want to keep hold of someone like ASM that can provide something different. And you know what? I'm a big fan of ASM. I can see the quality that he has. There is no other player in the Premier League that plays like ASM, that can produce quality like ASM. He's such a unique player that we would be absolutely crazy to let go of a player like ASM. But what I've seen from him is that he is conforming to what Eddie Howe wants. You could see last night, he's still got that ability to run and travel and be dynamic with the ball, but he's making the right decisions. There was a ball that was played over the top. I think Murphy ended up having a shot that hit the side netting, but the ball gets played over the top from right to left, and he runs through. And normally you get the ball and just run in on goal, but what he does, plays the ball first time across because there's 3 Newcastle players in there. And it's just little things like that in the past, he would have made the wrong decision and it would have looked stupid on him, but he's making the right decision now for the team. As I said to you in the review show, the one thing I want from him is to be balanced. I don't want him to just think about the team, because what makes him the player that he is his individuality, the fact that he can go on those runs, take on those players and be the match winner. I still want him to do that, but I want him to make sure that he makes the right decisions and does it when he needs to. But he's making the right decisions for the team at the moment. He had great moments in the game at Southampton and against Fulham, to be fair. And, could well have got a goal if Kaletakar had not took him down. It was a fantastic run. Great piece of play. And that's where you want ASM, running through the middle, can jump left or right. Defenders don't know where to stand. I just think he's got a future at Newcastle United. He just needs to stay fit. And I think it seems like Eddie Howe has got a formula of a way of working with him. And it looks like ASM's got a hunger. He hasn't been the typical French player to moan and sulk of being on the bench, go to the French journalists like the likes of Sissoko and Gouffran and various other French players have done in the past. He's gone there, he's got his head down, he's worked his socks off, and I think there is definitely a future there for him. That is for sure. Great points all round. Question from Frederick Jordan: Why is Newcastle's strategy to act late in the window? What, from your perspective, why do you think that might be Newcastle's strategy?
Yeah, so Eddie Howe made it quite clear at the start of the transfer window that obviously last year they actively went out and had to sign players, whereas this time round they've afforded time to sit back, assess the market and see what opportunities become available. With that as well, injuries were always going to play a part. Players potentially leaving the football club was going to play a part. So Newcastle acting late in the transfer window really isn't a surprise. As I say, Howe made that clear. That was the club's transfer policy this month. Whether fans agree with it, I'm not sure. But I understand where the club's coming from. Say that they were in a different situation last year where they had to go out and sign players because they had the Premier League status. It's at risk. This year, because of the position they're in, they're not having to chase down clubs for deals. They're able to do deals at their own price, the price they feel is fit for purpose. So. Yeah, it was no surprise to me. It was made clear from the start of the transfer window that Newcastle weren't going to be busy in the opening few weeks. But now, because Chris Wood has left the football club, opportunities towards the end of the window are beginning to arise. Newcastle are active and hopefully we'll bring in 1 or 2 players before next week's deadline.
Chad Williams just put Liverpool Echo. Sorry. Liverpool Echo have just tweeted Gordon has handed in a transfer request. So from what our resident Blaze is sent us, it seems like it's come to fruition. There's another person, EI Bob always put Everton midfielder Anthony Gordon has now asked to leave the football club and has missed the last 2 training sessions at Finch Farm. So it's looked like it potentially could be true, and that he's handed in a transfer request to push on that deal. Yes or no, Jordan? Any more talks for João Pedro?
No, nothing. He's injured at the minute, isn't he, as well?
He's injured. Yeah, he got 6 to 8 week injury back at the end of December. I think it was a game against Millwall. So yeah,
injury, and then he signed a long-term contract in the last summer as well after Newcastle tried to sign him. So potential for his name to crop up back up in the summer, but certainly I don't envisage him joining the football club this month. No.
Excellent. A few more questions on here. What happened to all the interest in Thuram? I assume they're referring to Marcus Thuram. All gone quiet recently. Any particular reason for that?
To be honest, I'm not sure there ever was genuine interest. I think it was a player that Newcastle had put the feelers out to, but didn't get much back. The reason why it became such a big story, or if you like, among the fan base, was the fact that Alan St. Maxim came out and said that he wanted Newcastle to sign Marcus Thuram. Obviously, I put that question to Eddie Howe, and he sort of laughed it off.
he loves you.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think he thinks I'm a bit stupid, but to be fair, he's not wrong. But,
we don't anyway, Jordan. We don't.
Never.
But yeah, I'm not sure there was ever proper interest other than an inquiry to the player.
Interesting. In relation to João Pedro, yes, we'd love to get the Watford fans back on. They're great crack, those boys. I'm sure if anything Watford related comes about, we'll get them on, no doubt about it. Jordan, are we looking for any players in the Championship? Have you heard of any links with anyone Championship related? Anyone we've got our eye on in particular?
No, I haven't heard any players from the Championship. What Eddie Howe has said previously as well is that he wants players that are Premier League ready. So I suppose that unless it's a star talent in the Championship, I'm not sure Newcastle would look to do business there. I'm trying to rack my brains of standout players in the Championship currently, and there's no one really standing out. Don't get me wrong, my AFL Championship knowledge isn't the best. People in the chat might be able to name a couple of players that are doing well in the Championship, but there's no names that come to mind when asked about that. No.
Interesting. There is another question here from Would I Eat There? Question for the crew. Isaac showed last night what you can achieve with a proper right winger who can beat a man and accurately cross. Should we be looking for a winger? I'm not sure if it means should Isaac be playing on the wing or whether we need to look for an additional winger. But I'll ask the question regardless. Should Isaac potentially be playing on the right wing after he showed that quality, or is he the man to be playing right down the middle?
No, I think that's a really good point. So the early things I realised about Alexander Isak when he was playing the striker role before he picked up his thigh injuries, he was quite isolated, and his best game was picking up pockets. He'd done that against Liverpool and tore them apart for an hour. Played against Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, played in the striker role, was isolated, didn't tend to have too much impact on the game. And we've seen in the even last night, he found pockets. The Southampton were leaving space, and Newcastle were desperate for Alan St. Maxim and Isak to come on. And that's what they did. Them two players done that and only won the game for Newcastle. I do think there's possibly a case to play Isak in a wide area. Because, as I say, I think he's really good at picking up them pockets. His technique's brilliant, pacey. This might be a bit too far, actually, but I think there's similarities between Isak and Thierry Henry. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not saying Isak is going to be as great as Thierry Henry or is currently that great. But just the way that the sort of glide, the technique. I think there's similarities there as well. And Thierry Henry, I think in his early stage of his career, started out as a forward before the wide forward before transitioning to a striker. I think at the moment, I think possibly Isak is best suited to a wide area until he gets used to the Premier League more and he gets used to sort of playing that central position, because I think at the moment Isak is quite a lean guy. and has a tendency to be shoved off the ball quite easily. But all that, know-how and strength will come as he gets used to the Premier League. So, perhaps there is a case to play Alexander Isak on the right wing. I don't think that would be a bad shout.
No, definitely. Last few questions. Well, I'll just answer this one. If Newcastle do sign Gordon, is that the end of Maddison? No, I think no. Don't ask that question again, Gary. He's making me angry. Interesting one. What are our thoughts on VAR last night? Obviously, they disallowed the goal for Joe Linton. I'm still trying to wrap my brain as to think why. Obviously, it then came to our rescue as such with the Armstrong goal on the back of that. What are our thoughts on VAR? It came in this round. Was it any good? Were you annoyed by it? Do we need it? Just what your general thoughts. Daz, I'll start with you.
Yeah, we need it. We probably need it. I always need to start to keep improving it. But last night, Joe Linton's goal should have counted. Armstrong's one shouldn't have. So, but it did. I'll echo what Paul Tudor review said as well on just because leading into the Southampton manager is some great comments at the end of the game. So we're kind of impressed with what he had to say. And he like Conor, he said, it did kind of balance itself out. We would be still complaining about it, of course, if we didn't get that goal later on in the game. But look, we'll let it go. It'll go our way again. Hopefully.
No. In fact, Richard, I'm going to come to a different question for you. Paul C said, please, they didn't have a team photo last night. Job only 50% done. Yeah, I'd not, you know what? It's not even registered for me that they didn't have a team photo after the win. That must be the first win that they haven't had a team photo. Is that right? Someone confirm.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an issue with that? Do you think?
No, I think it's because technically the job isn't done.
No,
it's a two-legged tie. If it was, a single-leg semi-final, then sure enough they'd have done it. But there's no point doing it because the tie is over. It's a bit like what we said before about Jacob Murphy. He obviously he waved bye-bye to collect a car last night, and obviously everyone thought the shithousery was class and stuff like that. But you can guarantee next week the Southampton lads will be wanting to kick you up a height for the whole of the game. He's on the pitch next week, and you don't want to be having that picture like where we've celebrated like we've actually won the trophy before we've actually gone to Wembley yet, because there's not 1-0. I don't think it's going to happen. But that said, football's a funny old game. Southampton are still in this tie. If we haven't killed them off or anything like that, there's nothing to turn around and say we.
I'll pick up where Richie was there, but I would agree 100% with what Richie is saying. And when we did win, I said I hope they don't take that picture because it would be wrong because the job isn't done. Let them take it next Tuesday night. A couple of new signings as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, last couple. I'll get rid of that one. So this is a really, really good one, actually. From Daniel. Question for Jordan. Is the inability, the lack of suitors for players Newcastle need to ship out, having a big impact on our capability to go out and get players we want or need?
No, definitely. It's a really good point really good question by Daniel, because we all talk about financial fair play, and the big issue Newcastle have got at the moment is the wage bill they're paying for bit part players and players that currently aren't even at the football club. So we'll take the loans, for example, in the summer. So they're still paying money towards Dwight Gale, who has left the club permanently. He's obviously at Stoke. Scored his first goal on Saturday. Actually, I think it was his first goal in 50-odd games or whatever. So,
wow.
Yeah, Newcastle are paying money towards him. Isaac Hayden. I believe if Norwich City don't get promoted from the Championship this season, Isaac Hayden returns to Newcastle next summer. So that's don't know his exact wage, but I would guess at £50,000. I think Kieran Clark, I think he might be covered. Jeff Henrik, he's a player that's still on Newcastle's wage bill. I'm trying to think of others as well. But anyway, you're getting the gist, the fact that Newcastle are paying money towards players they aren't even using. And that is a big concern going forward. Because it is impacting them currently, because with financial fair play, Newcastle haven't announced big sponsorship deals yet. So the money that they're bringing in is actually relatively quite low. Obviously, that'll change in the summer when they do announce a new shirt sponsor, a couple of that, commercial sponsors, etc. as well, which will improve and bolster that transfer kitty, if you like, and the funds coming into the football club. But it's a really good point that they're paying for players that aren't currently there, and the summer is a big job to try and get down the wage bill for players that they aren't using. Because as a business model, it doesn't work. No matter how rich you are, having players that you do that aren't at the football club that you're paying for is affecting them. In terms of that financial fair play scenario where they need money coming into the club to go out and spend as much money as they possibly can.
No, great points as always. A really quick one. What sort of money do you think they would be wanting if we were to get someone like Moussa Diaby?
I'll take a guess at this, but I think the price tag was 60 million in the summer. I think this season Leverkusen have actually struggled, haven't they, in the Bundesliga, so that may have brought Diaby's valuation down a little bit. Correct us if I'm wrong, but I don't remember seeing him in the France squad for the World Cup.
No, I didn't. It wasn't.
No. So no, 6 months on, there is argument to say that his valuation's gone down. How much? I don't know, because I don't think, I know Diaby won't be a player signing for Newcastle this month.
No, definitely a summer deal, that's for sure. And lastly, David R put a really good point on. So who drops to the bench if we bring in Gordon? You don't spend 50-60 million to sit on the bench. Is he really better than someone in our front line? So it's an interesting question, a good question from David. What are all your thoughts on what David R's question was?
Yeah, that's the question. We spoke about earlier on the show, but as I say Newcastle need, at the moment, they're struggling to score goals. They're creating chances, but they haven't got that finishing quality in the final third. I'm just not sure if Anthony Gordon is that sort of spark that can, get them firing on all cylinders again. But do I think he's better than what they've got currently? There may be a case to say that he could come in on the left wing for Joe Linton and put Joe Linton back in the centre mid, but then you've got Alan St-Maxim sitting there as well. Or does he see him as a potential replacement for Miguel Almiron, which seems ludicrous given the season that Miguel Almiron's had. But I think there's always an argument with Almiron to say that, there's a saying that class is permanent, form is temporary. And I think that might be the latter for Miguel Almiron. It would be really hard for him to maintain the form he's kept up this season. But yeah, it's a real struggle. There's no one in the front line where I would go Anthony Gordon is definitely better than him. But clearly, as I mentioned before, Eddie Howe sees value in bringing them in. So we've got to back his decision. As I mentioned, he's got enough cash in the bank to, if that's his sign and he wants that player, let him do it, and then let's see what happens.
Great questions, superb questions from the chat as always. Sorry if we didn't get all your questions tonight, but we'll certainly try and answer them all in the next show. But the one thing I wanted to end on, it's not really a question, it's just a point. And actually, someone's just asked us the question on Twitter. There's a few of our players that got yellow cards last night. Bruno Guimaraes, Kieran Trippier. Are any of those players, and I'm not expecting us to know the answer here, maybe someone in the chat does, Are any of those players at risk that if they get a yellow card on Tuesday of potentially missing the final? Richie's going no. I put it out there because people are genuinely asking the question, and it was something that I thought about. I didn't think it would be the case, but Richie, you might know a little bit more, so tell us.
Yeah, I read an article today that for some reason now the cup competitions, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, they can't be basically the yellow cards are wiped out
from game to game.
Yeah, well, they got wiped out with the quarterfinals. So look, they would if they carry on. You have to basically get a red card, like a card got basically.
Yeah. So I think it's 3 for a suspension in the cup competitions. If you get 3 yellow cards, you get a suspension.
Yeah, and it gets reset at the quarterfinals. You go back down. It's a bit like the group stage of the World Cup. They get wiped out the group stage sort of thing at the quarterfinal stage. So the only way you can be suspended is from the second leg of the semi-final, like the car is. If you get to the semi-final, even if you get set off in the second leg, you don't miss it because obviously they don't want to penalise you for getting to the final sort of thing. So they're literally just wiped out.
Brilliant stuff. Great stuff, Richie. Thank you for clearing that up. That was, I think a few Newcastle fans were concerned about that. So glad to clear that up. Right. All questions done. All transfers linked to Newcastle, certainly the main ones, covered. Daz, I'll let you wrap us up.
Let's go for sponsors because hopefully my delay isn't too bad. Just a shout out. I'll flick it over to the other one because I have all of them there. Yeah, so shout out to the radiatorshed.com. I'm just gonna get rid of that comment 1 sec. Boom, gone. So shout out to Russ and the radiatorshed.com for all your radiator and heating needs as we put Richie and Jordan in jail. And you'll see Pete will have mentioned the other night, and when we did the review show as well, we mentioned the new colours that are available in the cast iron colours. So go check out the radiatorshed.com for all the latest. Here's a little blurb on so you can pause it there if you're looking for your radiators, and you can read it back because I'm useless at reading it out. But so get on to Russ. He will sort you out, and he'll even be able to get them installed for you through his other business, the Install Works. So contact Russ, and he will sort you on all your radiator needs. He'll be coming along in the loaded van. Also, a shout out to our new sponsor. And new sponsor here is H2O Bathroom Design Co. So the Northeast's largest supplier of Villeroy and Bosch bathroom ware. I'm saying all those names wrong. They're in Team Valley, Gateshead. Over 20 years established. They're a family-run business. So get down to the showroom on the 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. Wherever that is, I have no idea. You might know where that is. And here we'll give Richie a shower. Look, I love these logos. You can do things like that. That's perfect. There you go, Richie. Wash and go there. All over. And for just if you wonder what they do bathrooms, and they don't look too shabby. These bathrooms, they're absolutely gorgeous. And I know we are cursing at these pictures because we're going to get great a lot of abuse, and we'll have to start doing up bathrooms now when our other halves see these bathroom pics. So they're absolutely amazing. And if you need to know any information about them, contact us or contact H2O Bathroom Design Co. And same with Russ on the radiatorshed.com. Either contact us and we put you in contact with Russ, or go direct. No hassle at all. That is it for the sponsors. We've already mentioned. Don't miss the loaded match day live next Tuesday, and with deadline day included. That will be all action. That show. And as Jordan says, you never know. There might be some activity for Newcastle on that day, even though the game will be going on. So we keep abreast of both areas. And that's not it. That's the only show we've scheduled. But we have a few shows up our sleeve between now and then. So we haven't released anything yet about them, because they will evolve, and they'll involve reaction shows. We're ready to go once news drops, and we'll assemble and bring a show on a reaction. But anything else, guys, you want to say apart from thanks to Jordan for coming and joining us tonight. As always, Eddie Howe might think you're a fool, but we don't. We definitely don't, Jordan.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Top man as always, Jordan. Great opinions, great knowledge, and look, I'm sure we'll have you back on again soon to talk all things Newcastle United. Whether it's transfers or not, we don't know. Fingers crossed we get a few through the door. That's for sure. But look, boys, been a pleasure. Those in the chat, if you haven't already, we've had 300 consistently throughout the show tonight. Click that like on the way out. Click the sub if you're new to the channel. Come and join the Lodi family. And absolutely spot on as always. How'd you like that?
I like it a lot.
Drink it like me, then tell me if you like that, like that.